Sven Harmeling. He's the global policy lead on climate change at CARE International, a humanitarian organization. He joins me now live from Bonn in Germany. Thank you for joining me on the program. Sven, first of all, I want to say that traveling on Thanksgiving in the United States is always a nightmare. I have never traveled on the holiday without delays, flight cancellations. There's always a storm. Is it just our perspective because it's always such a nightmare with being around family at the holidays, or are these storms actually getting worse?
I mean, of course, first it's very sad for those people who have real challenges to getting to the families, and I hope that there will not be any significant injuries or so. But I think looking at it from a bigger picture perspective, we see across the planet that weather is basically really shifting, and that we have more and more of these extreme events, and also many of these events really becoming heavier, more intense also in meteorological terms. And this only adds to all the scientific studies, the thousands of studies and measurements we have, which really make clear climate change is happening. It's caused mainly by humankind, by the CO2 emissions and other emissions that are released into the atmosphere. And we absolutely need to tackle this and really get prepared on the one hand for the impacts that we can't avoid, but also really slowing down climate change.
Mm-hmm. The weather that's hitting the U.S. is being called historic, but it feels like we're hearing that word more and more. Historic storms, bomb cyclone, like these really scary terms. Is this something that we can expect to see more and more of each year, and more severe weather?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to expect it. Of course, every year it can be a bit different. In one year there might be more snowstorms, in another year there might be more hurricanes in the summer, for example. But I think overall we're seeing what has been regarded as absolutely, let's say, exceptional heavy events. For example, a 1 in 100 years event. We're already seeing this, and according to science projections, it will get worse, that these will become the new normal, but a very dangerous new normal.
Right. Climate change isn't going away, especially if countries continue to do nothing to stop it. But neither is Thanksgiving, and people will continue to travel. I know travel in the United States goes up every year. We're already looking at hundreds of flight cancellations. What can people do to make their lives a little bit more easier? Because people aren't going to stop traveling to visit families.
No, of course, and it would be the wrong assumption to let's say, to lead the discussion from that starting point. I think there are many ways where travel and also other let's say uses of energy can become much climate smarter. You can shift wherever possible to public transport, for example, instead of individual transport. Of course, it depends on the settings, and in cities this is much easier than in rural areas. Of course, it will also be important to have cars being more efficient, being increasingly electric, and of course produce electricity from renewable energy sources. But I think we also need to consider, at least, and everyone to some extent has to make personal choices, but people have become more and more used to let's say, a lot of traveling, and some of the traveling is not even always like the most comfortable one. But have gotten used to it, sometimes traveling just for a weekend, long distances. And I think it's also important to start thinking, okay, what is the right investment of time and causing of greenhouse gas emissions? And there also, I think we will see many more ways in the future also where such travel can be climate smarter.
And finally, one more question for you. As people do head home to spend time with families, any suggestions for how to talk to family members who perhaps might be climate deniers, so that way you don't have a big argument at the dinner table?
Well, I think it's a good point, and many of us in the climate community, and also the school people marching on the streets these days, always say it's important to talk about it, and it's important to see it as a fact-based issue. It's not a partisan issue. It's not a question of what you believe. I mean, like gravity is there, and whether you believe in gravity or not doesn't matter. And we also have similar facts for climate change. So the question is more, what are the ways that we can work together, that we can change course, and this can come in many countries with a lot of so-called co-benefits. So it's not always about talking about, oh yeah, it will be so expensive to shift emissions or to shift energy sources. There's a lot of things that can be done also for community health.
All right, we'll leave it there. Sven Harmeling joining us from Bonn, Germany. Thank you.